What's happening, everyone? Professor Mike, Coach T, back again, graced by Round Leads here in the UK. Talking again, Sundays, talking concepts, right? Talking ideas. Just going to throw some stuff at you, see what you think. I think we'd all agree, if we look at any martial arts, any sport, right, pretty much, I would say across the board, angles are key if we want an advantage on our opponent, all right? No different in jiu-jitsu. As human beings, we're very used to dealing with, this has evolved over years, right? Dealing with threats that come straight towards us. That's why we can see straight forward. If anyone creates an angle or something comes from behind us or at the side, much more difficult for my body, my proprioception to deal with it. All right, so we want to create angles. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I'm much more powerful driving forward as a human again, right? So if I want to create maximal pressure, I drive forward using my legs, my arms, or pull in, and I go straight forward. As soon as I have to create an angle, I lose power, all right? We're leaking power massively, all right, if we start to go off at an angle. That's why, if you were deadlifting, all right, you would deadlift straight up, right? We wouldn't start deadlifting out to the side here because we're going to leak power. So if we can create angles on our opponents, we create opportunities which are hard for them to defend, we also reduce their power, okay? Two critical things to think about when we're talking about jiu-jitsu. We showed you a technique earlier in the week, right? Triangle from the close guard. It's probably one of the best examples this week of how we use angles on our hips, all right? And generally, we either have to create the angles ourselves, or we have to move our opponent across an angle to create the angle for ourselves, right? So two ways of thinking, either we move or we move them, all right? They may move themselves and put themselves in a bad angle for us. We'll take it every day of the week, all right? So think those two things. We create an angle for ourselves, or we create an angle by moving our opponent. All right, let's have a look at both of those things. So from the close guard, we looked at this week, right? Let's look at the first one of those. We had the cross grip, didn't we? We looked at maybe coming here. Now, if I try and throw a triangle from here straight forward, very easy for my opponent to just posture up and deal with it, right? Even if I'm quick, I'm not going to be able to finish that. As soon as I create an angle, now, the angle's off here. The power's, my hips now facing this way. The power's here. Now he can't beat me with the arm and I come back through to a different angle. Okay? And this is where the triangle works, right? It's called a triangle for a reason. We want the angle on the neck. All right? And my opponent can't deal with it. So I've created different angles there. Straight forward. I created an angle to one side. And then I created an angle to the other side. My opponent didn't move. But we created angles to deal with the arm and then access the choke and the strangle around the neck. Okay, that's the first idea. We create angles to get an advantage on our opponent. Okay, what about the first technique we did on Monday? Where we went 2-on-1. We dragged our opponent here. Now I haven't moved. My opponent, I've created an angle now onto his back. And all of his power now is pointing in this direction. Okay, we know when he's strong, if he puts power directly towards me. Okay, we know this linear power is where he accesses it from. His hips are pointing towards me. That's where the power is. So if I can deal with this and get him off to the side, he now starts to leak power. All right, and I've got an angle to the back. I create a better angle by moving myself. And now, look where we are. We're heading to the back. And the further on we go, remember what I said about humans being great, visually and perceptually like in front of us, the further on we go to the back, the less chance he has defending what we're doing, okay? His limbs are pointing forward, his eyes are pointing forward, fantastic at defending here, okay? Pretty decent at defending here, dreadful at defending here, right? So we want to get our opponent to this position wherever possible. So those are two things I want you to think about. Me creating angles, generally with my hips, or me creating angles by moving my opponent around. Okay? Fundamentally, if we don't create angles, either in the guard, okay, I'll show you in a second when we're passing, then we really are a static target for our opponent. We're very easy to manipulate. All right, let's look at it from a guard passing perspective. I'll ask Coach T to lay down. Again, I need to either create an angle on my opponent, okay, or I need to create the angle myself. So I need to either move him to create the angle, or I create an angle myself, okay? I'm not going to pass the guard by going straight forward. I'm walking into his guard, okay? I will lose at this point. He will create angles on me. He's got power to access. But as soon as I move the angle, I haven't moved, I've moved him to an angle, his power is now in this direction, and my power is bearing straight down on him. So I've got a mechanical advantage here, right? So that's me moving him, or he can stay in the same place, and maybe I move my angle to get around the corner, however you do it. Okay, that was just a very simple some kind of pressure thing. It doesn't really matter where your legs are, where your arms are. Ultimately, I want to pressure my opponent by moving him, or I will move the angle. Both do the same job, right? Switch T. So that's something for you to think about. You know, we want to challenge you guys when you're watching our stuff or you're starting jiu-jitsu to think about some of the bigger ideas, some of the concepts, some of the principles. Because if you know this stuff, I've said it before, it underpins everything we do in jiu-jitsu, right? So this gives you a huge advantage, and we want you to be thinking on a conceptual level, not just collecting techniques. Techniques are fun, man, but unless you know why you're doing them, all right, you're only collecting a number of techniques, and as soon as your opponent gets an angle on you, guess what? Technique won't work, all right? So create angles either by moving yourself or by moving your opponent. They do two things. They create opportunities for us to exploit weakness in our opponent. They also reduce his effectiveness and power. Two critical things in a fight situation. All right? Hope you enjoyed that. Something kind of pretty deep to think about. Go away, analyze some fights, look at everybody. They all create angles. We'll see you next week. Take care.